Million-level clearance confirmed. The recordings that follow are classified as primary vectors of corruption. They have been archived not for study, but for containment. 3 Inquisitors have been lost to the contents of these tapes. 2 requested termination. 1 simply stopped speaking and never resumed. You are about to hear how loyalty becomes heresy, how faith becomes damnation, how the brightest devotion can curdle into the darkest betrayal. This is the story of Monarchia, a city that no longer exists. This is the story of 2 sons who fell. One through despair, one through deception. By order of the Ordo Hereticus, any listener who experiences intrusive thoughts, recurring dreams of fire, or the urge to speak words in languages they do not know, should report immediately to their assigned confessor. The Emperor protects. He must. I was not there when Monarchia burned. I learned of it later. Whispered accounts, fragments of testimony, the haunted silences of word-bearers who would not meet my eyes. By the time I understood what had happened, the city was already ash. The Legion had already knelt, and Lorgar Aurelian had already begun his long walk into darkness. But I will tell you what I know, what I have pieced together from 100 broken sources, what the Imperium has tried so desperately to forget. This is the story of a son who loved his father too much, and a father who could not accept that love. Rewind if you must. Press play when ready. What is the purpose of conquest? I have heard my brothers answer this question 1,000 ways. Horus speaks of unity, the scattered family of humanity brought together under one roof. Daemon speaks of order, systems, structures, the machinery of civilization. Russ speaks of strength, the weak protected by the strong. They are not wrong, but they are not complete. Conquest without meaning is mere violence. A galaxy united in body, but divided in spirit, is no unity at all. We do not fight simply to plant flags and extract tithes. We fight because humanity deserves to know the truth, and the truth is this: there is a God. He walks among us. He leads us. He has lifted humanity from the ashes of the old night and set our feet upon the path to the stars. The Emperor of mankind is divine, and it is our sacred duty, our joy, to ensure that every human soul knows his name. That is the purpose of conquest. This is why we build. Legion Assessment, 17th Legion, the Word-Bearers. Primarch, Lorgar Aurelian. Homeworld, Colchis. Crusade compliance rate, lowest among active legions. The Word-Bearers' methodology differs significantly from standard compliance protocols. Following initial military action, the 17th Legion dedicates extensive resources to cultural conversion. Temples are constructed, liturgies are composed, populations are educated in the divinity of the Emperor. Average compliance duration, 3.7 times longer than Legion median. Worlds fully converted to Emperor worship, 100%. Recidivism rate, 0%. Assessment. The Word-Bearers' methods produce exceptional long-term stability, but represent a significant drain on Crusade momentum. Recommend review of resource allocation. Addendum. Assessment forwarded to War Master's office. No response received. I have heard the whispers about my Legion. That we are slow, that we waste resources, that we spend too much time on worlds that have already surrendered. Let me tell you about 4716. When we arrived, the population was compliant within a week. They welcomed us. They accepted Imperial rule without resistance. By any standard metric, the world was conquered. and within 3 generations they would have forgotten us entirely. They would have paid their tithes and obeyed their governors, and sent their sons to die in the imperial army, all without understanding why, without knowing what they were a part of, without feeling the light of the Emperor in their hearts. That is not compliance. That is subjugation. That is treating human beings as resources to be extracted, rather than souls to be illuminated. My brothers leave behind garrisons and tax collectors. I leave behind meaning. I leave behind populations who do not merely obey the Emperor, but love him, who would die for him, not because they are ordered to, but because they cannot imagine a life without his light. Tell me, which conquest is stronger? Which world will stand when darkness comes? The iterators call faith inefficient, but faith does not break. Compliance does.
I met a word bearer once, before Monarchia, before everything changed. He was not like other Astartes, where the lunar wolves projected casual menace, and the imperial fists radiated cold discipline. This warrior seemed almost gentle. He spoke of the Emperor the way a child speaks of a beloved parent. His eyes shone when he described the cathedrals his legion had built on conquered worlds. Every stone is a prayer, he told me. Every spire reaches toward Terra. When the people of these worlds look up, they see his glory reflected in what we have made. I asked him if the killing troubled him, the necessary violence of compliance. He looked at me with something like pity. The killing is the smallest part, he said. Anyone can destroy. We create. We give meaning to lives that had none. We show them that their suffering under the old night was not purposeless. It was preparation. They were waiting for him, and now he has come. He believed it. Completely. Utterly. There was no doubt in him. No shadow of uncertainty. I envied him, I think. I did not know then what that certainty would cost.
The imperial truth is not a suggestion. It is not a preference. It is the foundation upon which the Imperium is built. There are no gods. This is the first and final truth. The beings that dwell in the warp are not divine. They are predators, parasites. They feed on human faith, human fear, human devotion. Every prayer strengthens them. Every temple is a beacon that draws their attention. The Emperor understood this. He had seen what worship could do, how it could twist civilizations, how it could open doors that should remain closed. The long night was filled with cults and prophets and holy wars, and all of them ended in blood and madness. The imperial truth was meant to starve the warp, to deny the predators their sustenance, to build a humanity that looked to science, to reason, to itself, not to imaginary powers beyond the veil. This is why the Emperor rejected worship, not because he was humble, not because he did not deserve adoration, because he knew what adoration feeds. They call it the imperial truth. I call it blindness. How can we look upon the Emperor, his radiance, his power, his eternal wisdom, and call him merely human? How can we witness miracles and deny the miraculous? How can we stand in his presence and not fall to our knees? The iterators speak of science, of reason, of measurable phenomena, but I have felt him. I have stood before the master of mankind and known with every fiber of my being that I was in the presence of the divine. You cannot measure faith. You cannot quantify devotion. And you cannot tell me that what I have experienced is delusion. The Emperor may deny his godhood. That is his right. Gods are not required to announce themselves. But I know what he is, and I will spend every breath I have ensuring that humanity knows it too.
Partial compliance record. Worlds brought into the Imperium by 17th Legion, 815.M30, 843.M30. 4716, population 3.2 billion. Temples constructed, 847. Time to full cultural integration, 11 years. Kur, population 8.7 billion. Capital city designated Monarchia. Time to full cultural integration, 40 years. Note, Monarchia assessed as the most perfectly realized expression of imperial devotion in the Eastern Fringe. Recommendation, submit for architectural commendation. Monarchia. I have seen the picked captures. They do not do it justice. Images never capture faith. But even in flat reproduction, the city took my breath away. Every building was a temple. Every street led to a shrine. The entire city was designed as a prayer, rising from the plains of Kur like a hymn made stone. They say Lorgar spent 4 decades perfecting it. He personally approved every archway, every icon, every inscription. He walked the streets at night, speaking with the faithful, adjusting a carving here, commissioning a fresco there. It was his gift to the Emperor, his proof that faith and conquest could walk hand in hand. His demonstration that the word-bearer's way, the slow way, the devoted way, was not weakness. It was love. And when the Emperor finally came to see it, Lorgar must have been so proud, so certain that his father would finally understand. Word-bearer's command. This is Orbital Watch. We're detecting multiple warp translations at the system's edge. Signatures confirmed. One vessel of immense displacement. Configuration matches the Imperator Somnium, the Emperor's personal conveyance. Additional contacts, Legio Custodes gunships, Sisters of Silence transports, significant ground force capability. Command, please advise, do we... The Emperor came without warning. No announcement, no preparation time. No opportunity for Lorgar to arrange a proper welcome. He simply arrived, his ship tearing through the void, his golden custodians descending on Monarchia like falling stars. And behind them came the flames.
I watched Monarchia burn. Not from a distance. Not from a tactical display. I stood on the Avenue of Illumination, the processional road that led to the great cathedral, and I watched the custodians set fire to everything we had built. They did not speak. They did not explain. They simply burned. The cathedral's spires, the shrine of first light, the hall of compliant souls, where we keep the names of every convert who had chosen the Emperor's truth. All of it burning. Around me, brothers stood frozen. Some cried out. Some simply stared. A captain near me fell to his knees and began to weep. We did not understand. We could not understand. The city we had spent 40 years building was dying in front of us, and we did not know why. The Emperor walked through the flames. He was attended by his custodians, golden giants, each one a match for Nastates' captain, and beside him walked Malcador the Sigillite, his face unreadable. The Emperor did not look at the burning city. He did not look at the people fleeing the flames. The people who had worshipped him, who had built their lives around devotion to him. He looked at Lorgar, and his face. I cannot describe his face. I have fought Xenos horrors. I have seen things that would break mortal minds. Nothing has ever frightened me like the Emperor's expression in that moment. It was disappointment. Pure, cold, absolute disappointment. As if he had opened a gift expecting treasure and found only ash. He raised his hand, and we fell. All of us, 100,000 word-bearers, driven to our knees by a force that was not physical. Our armor meant nothing. Our strength meant nothing. We knelt in the ashes of our perfect city, and we could not rise. The following is a partial transcript of the Emperor's address at Kur. The original recording is stored in a null box beneath the Fortress of Hera, and may not be directly reproduced. Summary of content. You have failed me, Lorgar. I ordered you to conquer, you chose to preach. I ordered you to illuminate, you chose to worship. There are no gods. I'm not a god. Your faith is a poison, and you've spent 50 years spreading it throughout my Imperium. You shame me, Lorgar. You shame your brothers. You shame every world that has been brought into compliance through honest labor, while you built monuments to your own delusion. You will kneel here until I am satisfied that you understand, and then you will return to the Crusade. You will never speak of gods again. You will conquer as your brothers conquer. You will earn your place in this Imperium, or you will be forgotten. Father, please. I only wanted to show you how much we love you. He did not answer. The Emperor turned and walked away. Malcador followed. The custodians followed. They left us there, kneeling in the ashes. The city burning around us. The people we had converted, screaming as their world ended. We stayed for hours. Lorgar would not rise, and so none of us rose. We knelt until our leg servos began to fail. We knelt until the fires burned down to embers. We knelt until the sun set, and rose again. When Lorgar finally stood, he did not speak. He walked to his flagship in silence. He locked himself in his chambers. He did not emerge for weeks. And when he did, he was not the same.
I have tried to understand the Emperor's actions at Monarchia. The cold interpretation, he was right. Worship was dangerous. The word-bearers were spreading a faith that could empower the very entities the Imperial truth was designed to starve. Every temple was a potential gateway. Every prayer was food for the warp. From that perspective, burning Monarchia was a surgical strike, a necessary amputation. But I kept thinking about Lorgar's face in those picked captures. The ones taken before the Emperor arrived. The joy, the pure, uncomplicated love of a son who had spent his entire life trying to make his father proud. The Emperor saw inefficiency. He saw disobedience. He saw a strategic liability. He did not see his son's heart breaking. I do not know if gods exist. I am not qualified to judge the Emperor's wisdom. But I know this. If you break something badly enough, it does not simply stop working. Sometimes it starts working for someone else.
Warning. The following recording shows signs of warp contamination. Cogitator analysis indicates probability of mimetic hazard. Listener discretion is advised. These materials document the Word-Bearer's journey to the Eye of Terror, a pilgrimage that would doom the Imperium. Chronological placement: approximately 43 years before the outbreak of open heresy. The corruption had already taken root. My Lord Lorga, I understand your pain. We all felt it. Every word-bearer who knelt in those ashes. The Emperor's rejection was not merely a rebuke, it was an amputation. He cut away the thing that made us who we are. But I must ask you a question. What if the Emperor was not wrong about gods, but merely wrong about which god to worship?
Speak plainly, Erebus. I am in no mood for riddles.
The Imperial truth states there are no gods. But you and I both know that is a lie. We have felt the presence of divinity. We have known it, as certainly as we know the stars are fire. The Emperor denies his godhood? Very well. Perhaps he is right. Perhaps he is merely the most powerful human who has ever lived. But that does not mean divinity does not exist. There are powers in the warp, my lord. Ancient powers. Powers that do not reject worship, but welcome it.
You speak of the things beyond the veil. The predators the Iterators warn us about.
I speak of truths the Emperor has hidden. Truths he fears. He burned Monarchia because he saw your faith and was afraid. Not of what you believed, but of what might happen if you believed in something other than him. Something older, something more honest about what it is. The Emperor calls himself a man while wielding the power of a god. He forbids worship while demanding obedience. He speaks of truth while hiding the greatest truth of all. There are powers that would not treat you this way, my lord. Powers that value devotion, that answer prayers. I have seen them.
How?
I have walked the paths that others fear to tread. I have journeyed to the place where the veil grows thin, and I have learned that the universe is not as the Iterators describe. There is a place, my lord, a place where the warp bleeds into reality, where the truth cannot be hidden. If you would see for yourself, if you would understand what the Emperor has kept from all of us, I can take you there.
Erebus. Even now, 10,000 years later, his name is spoken as a curse. He was the first chaplain of the Word-Bearers, Lorgar's spiritual advisor, his confidant, his guide. He was also, we now know, the architect of the heresy. Erebus had walked the paths of the warp before any other Astartes. He had spoken with entities that mortal tongues should not name. He had learned what the Inquisition would later call the primordial truth. That chaos was real. That powers dwelt in the warp, and that they would grant favor to those who served them. He did not corrupt Lorgar through force. He did not threaten nor deceive. Not obviously. He simply offered. Here is something that wants your love. Here is something that will not reject you. To a son whose heart had just been shattered, it must have sounded like salvation.
Show me. Show me these powers of yours.
It would be my honor, my lord.
Fleet movement record, 17th Legion. Departure, core system, 857.M30. Official destination, Cadia Sector. Crusade operations. Actual destination,
data expunged by order Hereticus.
Duration of absence, 43 standard days. Note, upon return, Word Bearer's fleet exhibited minor warp contamination signatures. Routine cleansing performed. Anomalies attributed to unstable transit conditions. No further investigation conducted.
Welcome, children of the Blind Throne. Welcome to the truth he could not kill. You sought gods, and gods have heard you. You sought meaning, and meaning has found you. We have watched your species since before you discovered fire. We have waited for you to stop crawling and start reaching. You are not unwanted here, Lorgar Aurelian. You are beloved.
They're real. Powers beyond the veil. They're real. The Emperor knew. He always knew. And he lied. What do they ask of me?
Only what you have always wished to give. Faith, devotion, worship. Spread the truth. Open the gates. And when the time is right, bring them a galaxy that has been prepared to receive.
Lorgar returned from the Eye of Terror, transformed. He no longer spoke of the Emperor with wounded love. He no longer spoke of him at all, not publicly. He resumed the crusade as commanded. He conquered worlds with renewed efficiency. He built no more temples to the master of mankind. But the word-bearers had changed. In their warrior lodges, secret gatherings, closed to outsiders, different prayers were whispered, different symbols were drawn, different names were invoked. And Erebus began to travel, to the Luna Wolves, to the Death Guard, to the Emperor's children, and the World Eaters. He brought gifts, friendship, brotherhood. He brought the lodges.
The warrior lodges were officially tolerated. They were seen as harmless fraternities, places where Astartes could speak freely, build camaraderie, discuss philosophy, away from the rigid hierarchies of Legion command. Many Primarchs encouraged them. Even the Emperor, we are told, saw no danger. We now understand what the lodges truly were. Recruiting grounds, indoctrination chambers, a shadow network, spreading through the Legion like roots through soil, invisible from above, but slowly, surely, claiming everything they touched. The word-bearers planted them. Erebus watered them. And by the time anyone thought to look, half the Imperium's warriors had spoken oaths in the dark. The lodges must not seem threatening. Offer brotherhood, offer equality. A place where captains and line warriors can speak as peers. Offer secrets, but small ones at first. Oaths of loyalty that seem noble. Rituals that seem like tradition. You are not recruiting traitors, you are building trust. A brother who has sworn oaths with you, who has shared secrets with you, who has broken protocol beside you. That brother will hesitate before reporting you. That brother will want to believe the best of you, even when doubt creeps in. And when the time comes to ask him to break larger oaths, he will already be halfway there.
60 years passed. 60 years in which the word-bearers quietly rebuilt themselves as something new. 60 years in which the lodges spread through legion after legion, converting the Emperor's finest warriors, one secret handshake at a time. 60 years in which Lorgar waited for the right moment and the right weapon. He found both on a world called Davin.
Temporal marker, approximately 60 standard years after the Monarchia incident. Location, Davin system. Significance, site of the War Master's fall. What follows are recovered medical logs, Vox intercepts, and survivor testimony from the Davin campaign. This represents the moment when Horus Lupercal, the best of the Emperor's sons, was lost. Analysis confirms word-bearer involvement in Davin's initial corruption. The trap was 60 years in the making. Lorgar had learned patience. Is down. Repeat, the War Master is down. We're under heavy attack. Enemy commander designate Eugen Tamba has wounded the War Master with an unidentified blade. The wound is not responding to treatment. Request immediate extraction. The War Master is not responding. His life signs are weak.
I was aboard the Vengeful Spirit when they brought Horus back. I was not permitted to see him. No one was, except the senior commanders and apothecaries. But I saw their faces when they emerged from the Medicae Bay. I saw the fear that they could not hide. Horus was dying. The greatest of the Primarchs, the War Master, the Emperor's most beloved son. Dying from a wound that should have been trivial. Dying, and no one could stop it. I remembered what I had seen months earlier. Horus alone at the viewport. His weariness hidden behind that perfect smile. His hunger to be loved. His desperate need to be valued. And I wondered, if the Emperor lost him, would he even grieve? Or would he simply name another War Master and return to his secret project on Terra? I hated myself for thinking it. I could not stop thinking it.
Blade composition unknown. Metallurgical analysis returns contradictory results. Initial examination suggests warp taint. The tissue continues to necrotize. The corruption is spreading. Status comatose. Fever exceeds measurable parameters. Brain activity erratic. Prognosis dead in 3 days without intervention. Maybe 2. I have exhausted every option available to me. Every technique. Every resource. And then Erebus came to me with a suggestion. The people of Davin's Moon have healers. A lodge, the Serpent Lodge, that practices techniques unknown to Imperial science. They have cured wounds that apothecaries could not touch. Wounds that seemed unnatural. I know how this sounds. I know what the Crusade teaches. But the War Master is dying. Every hour I debate is an hour closer to losing him. There is no other option. We go to the Serpent Lodge. Bring him to us. Bring the wounded son. He has questions that have festered since Ulanor. Doubts he has never spoken aloud. A hunger that has never been fed. We will give him answers, and he will rise.
What happened in the Serpent Lodge is not known with certainty. The few witnesses who emerged would not speak of it, or could not. The recordings that exist are so corrupted that scholars debate whether they are genuine or warp-generated fabrications. But we know what Horus saw. A vision of the future. Terra transformed into a temple world. The Emperor worshipped as a god, while the legions were forgotten. His sons, his brothers, discarded once their usefulness had ended. Was it true? The Chaos Gods showed Horus a future, where the Emperor ascended to godhood on a throne of worship, where the Primarchs were erased from history, where everything they had built together was swept away. We now know that this was not the Emperor's plan. The Webway project was meant to free humanity, not enslave it. The Emperor's silence was failure, not betrayal. But Horus did not know that. All he knew was that the vision felt true. It matched his doubts. It confirmed his fears. It gave form to the shapeless anxiety that had gnawed at him since Ulanor. And in the moment when belief and doubt hung in perfect balance, the powers of the warp placed their thumb on the scale.
He rose on the third day. The wound had closed. His strength had returned. His eyes were open and he was speaking. And by every measure he was the War Master we had nearly lost. But something was different. I had served Horus for decades. I knew his moods, his gestures, the particular way his jaw tightened when he was displeased. I knew him better than I knew myself. And when he rose from that slab in the Serpent Lodge, I knew that something fundamental had changed. His smile was the same, his voice was the same. His orders were clear and confident and correct. But his eyes, something cold, looked out from where warmth had been. I told myself it was the trauma, the brush with death. I told myself he simply needed time to recover. I was wrong. The War Master we carried into that lodge did not come back. Something else did.
Welcome back, War Master. How may we serve? Horus did not announce his betrayal. He did not rage against the Emperor or call for rebellion. He simply changed. He gathered the Mournival, his closest advisors, and spoke to them in private. He reached out to brothers he knew shared his doubts. He listened to Erebus's counsel with new interest. And slowly, carefully, the conspiracy took shape. The Lunar Wolves became the sons of Horus. The lodges spread further. Trusted captains were tested with small heresies, and those who failed the test disappeared. By the time anyone realized what was happening, half the legions had already turned. 2 sons fell. Lorgar through despair, Horus through deception. One was broken by his father's rejection and sought powers that would accept his love. The other was poisoned by visions of a future that had not yet come to pass. And in believing the lie, he would make it true. That is the cruelest irony of the heresy. The future Horus saw, the Emperor worshipped as a god, the legions forgotten. It was not the Emperor's plan. It was never the Emperor's plan. But it is what we have now. 10,000 years of the Imperium that Horus's betrayal created. Temples in every world. Prayers in every mouth. The Emperor on his throne, sustained by the very worship he once forbade. The lie became prophecy. The vision became truth, because Horus believed it. The warrior lodges spread through the legions like wildfire. Brothers recruited brothers. Oaths were sworn in darkness. And by the time the Emperor's loyal sons realized something was wrong, half the Imperium's warriors had already turned. And Horus returned from Davin's moon with that same smile, same voice, the same golden charisma that had made him the War Master. But something behind his eyes had changed. Those who knew him best noticed small things. Hesitations, glances, words that did not quite fit. They told themselves it was the wound, the trauma, the brush with death. They told themselves their War Master had returned to them. They were wrong.
This concludes recording 2, the Heresy tapes. Classification remains Vermilion. The events documented in subsequent recordings represent the most catastrophic military conflict in human history. Casualties would number in the trillions. Half the Space Marine legions would betray their oaths. The Emperor himself would fall. The next recording begins at Istvan 3. It is the last transmission from Captain Nathaniel Garrow of the Death Guard, a loyalist trapped among traitors, fleeing to warn an Imperium that did not yet know it was at war. The Emperor protects.